Have you ever felt like your entire world could collapse in a single heartbeat? That gut-wrenching instant when everything you've built, your home, your dreams, your family, slips away like sand through your fingers. I'm Michael Thompson, a weathered 72-year-old man from the rolling hills of Napa Valley, California, lived through that nightmare at my wife Elizabeth's funeral. It was held in the historic St. Vincent's Chapel, a quaint 19th century building nestled among the vineyards with its weathered stone walls and arched stained glass windows that had witnessed countless joys and sorrows over the decades. After 45 years of marriage filled with sacrifices that defined my life, I discovered the unthinkable. Elizabeth had left it all to Louis, her secret lover. The old family home perched on the hillside overlooking our sprawling vineyards, the wine company we'd poured our souls into. Even the handmade ceramic plate I'd crafted for her in our early days, a symbol of my abandoned passion for pottery. But the real dagger to the heart, my own son David standing at the podium, publicly declaring Louis as his second father, right in front of me, as if my decades of devotion meant nothing. If you've ever been stabbed in the back by the people you loved most, the ones you bled for, then walk with me through this agonizing path. This is how my journey of pain began, and how I clawed my way toward reclaiming who I am. It all started that fateful morning just a few weeks ago, though it feels like an eternity has passed since then. I woke up in the master bedroom of our old Victorian house in the Napa Hills. The kind of place that's seen generations come and go, with creaky hardwood floors and walls paneled in rich oak that still echoed with the ghosts of happier times. The room was dimly lit by the first rays of the California sun, filtering through the lace curtains Elizabeth had sewn herself years ago. Those curtains, now faded and threadbare, fluttered gently in the breeze from the open window, carrying in the faint scent of blooming grapevines from our backyard vineyard. It was the height of summer, and Napa Valley was alive with the promise of harvest season rows of lush green vines stretching out like an emerald sea under the clear blue sky. But that morning, the sunlight didn't warm me. It felt cold, accusatory, highlighting every wrinkle on my face and every ache in my bones. I lay there for what seemed like hours, staring at the ceiling beams, their dark wood scarred from years of family life. My knees throbbed from decades spent trudging through the muddy rows of our vineyards, pruning vines under the relentless sun, or hauling crates during harvest. At 72, simple things like getting out of bed had become a battle. Arthritis gnawed at my joints, and my heart fluttered irregularly from the stress that had piled up like unpaid bills. Elizabeth's illness had taken its toll. I'd spent months by her bedside watching her fade, holding her hand through the chemo sessions at the local hospital in St. Helena. We'd built this life together, chasing the American dream in the heart of wine country. But now with her gone, the secret she'd confessed on her deathbed haunted me. A 10-year affair with Louis, our so-called family friend. "You were always so busy with the winery, Michael." She'd whispered, her voice weak, but her eyes pleading. I felt so alone. I'd forgiven her then in that sterile hospital room, smelling of antiseptic and regret, just to let her pass in peace. But forgiveness, it doesn't erase the pain. It just buries it deeper, waiting to erupt. Finally, I forced myself up my joints, protesting with sharp cracks. I shuffled to the closet, the floorboards groaning under my weight, and pulled out the old black suit hanging in the back like a forgotten relic. Elizabeth had chosen it for our 40th anniversary dinner at a fancy restaurant in downtown Napa, where we'd toasted to our life with a bottle from our own label. The wool was frayed at the cuffs now, the shoulders a bit tight from the weight I'd lost, caring for her nights without sleep, meals skipped in worry. As I buttoned it up, the fabric clung uncomfortably, carrying a faint musty smell mixed with the panic sweat from rummaging through the closet earlier that morning. Why wear it? To honor her, to show the world and myself that despite the betrayal gnawing at my soul, I was still the devoted husband. But as it pressed against my chest, it felt like an ironic straitjacket, a reminder of the facade I had to maintain. On the dresser sat the framed photo that had become my lifeline, Elizabeth at the Napa County Fair some years back. Her face radiant under the fairground lights, her red sundress twirling as we danced to live folk music from a local bluegrass band. Her laughter in that picture, pure, unfiltered joy, contrasted sharply with the hollow ache in my gut. Our hands were clasped tight as if nothing could pull us apart. My fingers trembled as I picked it up, the glass cool against my calloused skin. Every small action that morning carried weight, slipping the photo into my pocket to keep her close, to draw strength from the good memories before facing the cruel reality ahead. Stepping out the front door, the Napa air hit me crisp and sweet, laced with the earthy aroma of ripening grapes and the distant hum of tractors in neighboring fields. The driveway wound down the hill past our modest vineyard, where clusters of Cabernet Sauvignon hung heavy, promising another vintage. But today, the beauty felt mocking. The narrow roads of Napa Valley twisted through sun-dappled hills lined with wildflowers, and the occasional oak tree casting long shadows. I walked slowly to St. Vincent's Chapel, about a mile away, my steps deliberate to avoid aggravating my knees. The chapel stood like a sentinel from another era. Its stone facade weathered by time, tall columns flanking the entrance, and those vibrant stained glass windows depicting scenes of harvest and faith, fitting for a wine country landmark built in the 1800s by early settlers. As I approached, the bells began to toll slow, mournful peals that reverberated through the valley, each one slamming into my chest like a physical blow. My breath came in ragged gasps, not just from the walk, but from the mounting dread. I paused at the heavy wooden doors, inhaling deeply to steady myself. The garden beside the chapel bloomed with white lilies, Elizabeth's favorite, their scent mingling with the faint barbecue smoke wafting from a nearby roadside diner. A staple in these parts where folks gathered for ribs and stories after a long day in the fields. But the mix turned my stomach, amplifying the nausea of grief. Pushing open the doors, I entered the cool sanctuary, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and melting candle wax. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass, casting a kaleidoscope of colors, crimson reds like our Pinot Noir, deep blues like the evening sky over the vines, golden yellows like harvest sunlight across the marble floor. It was almost poetic, this living painting, but laced with irony on a day like this. The pews were filling with familiar faces, neighbors from the Valley Old Winery, employees, friends from the local ceramics club where I'd once volunteered. Their whispers rustled like dry leaves. Poor Michael, holding up after all that. I took my seat in the front row, the wooden bench hard against my back, and felt their pitying gazes like spotlights. Clutching the photo frame tighter, I dug my nails into my palms, fighting the surge of anger bubbling beneath the surface. Anna, Elizabeth's older sister at 75, slid into the seat beside me. Her white hair was pinned up neatly, her face etched with lines from a lifetime in the California sun. But her eyes remained sharp, almost piercing. She placed a hand on my shoulder, her voice a soft whisper laced with warmth. Michael, you've got to be strong now. Elizabeth would want us all to remember the good times. But as she spoke, her eyes darted away, avoiding mine as if guarding a secret too heavy to share. We'd been like family Anna coming over for Thanksgiving barbecues in the backyard, where we'd grill steaks from local ranches and share stories of Elizabeth's childhood antics in the valley. Her grip tightened on my hand, perhaps meant as comfort, but it only stirred my unease. What did she know that she wasn't saying? Inside, my emotions churned rage at the deception. Sorrow at losing Elizabeth, anxiety that the world was turning against me. The pastor began the service, his deep voice resonating off the high-vaulted ceiling like an echo from the past. I bowed my head, trying to focus on the prayers, but memories crashed over me like a tidal wave. Elizabeth and I had met in 1980 at the Napa County Fair under the twinkling lights of the Midway. She was in that red skirt laughing as we square danced to a bluegrass band, the air filled with the smells of cotton candy and fried dough. From there, we built our empire, starting with a few acres of neglected vines, turning them into a thriving winery. I abandoned my dream of a full-time ceramic studio, selling off my tools to invest in the business, all for her happiness and our family's future. Long nights by the Napa River, watching the stars, her whispering promises of forever. But then, in those final months, her confessions shattered it all. "Forgive me, Michael," she'd said, tears streaming down her pale face. "Louis was there when you weren't." I'd held her, whispering back, "I forgive you, love. We've had a beautiful life." The purpose to let her go without regret, to preserve harmony for David and the family. Yet sitting there now, the forgiveness felt like a hollow echo, pushing the hurt deeper into my core. Then came the eulogies. David, my only son at 45, stepped up to the podium, his tailored suit crisp, his dark hair slicked back like his mother's. His brown eyes, so much like Elizabeth's, brimmed with emotion as he gripped the microphone. "Thank you all for coming to honor my mom," he said, his voice steady but trembling at the edges. "She was a strong woman, always putting family first. She taught me about love, loyalty, and how to tend the vines. And I want to thank Louis, who stood by her like a second father to me." Those words hit like a thunderbolt. My heart pounded wildly, my breath catching in my throat. Second Father David, the boy I'd raised from infancy, teaching him to ride a bike on our gravel driveway, staying up late to help with homework while Elizabeth managed the winery books. The son for whom I'd sold my cherished ceramics workshop to pay for his business degree at UC San Francisco. And now this. The congregation murmured, shifting uncomfortably, their eyes darting to me. I locked stares with Louis across the aisle, tall and composed, his salt and pepper hair perfectly groomed, a smug satisfaction curling his lips under that expensive gray suit. He'd been a family friend, helping with odd jobs at the winery, but now I knew the truth, her lover the thief of my marriage. I couldn't hold it in anymore. My body moved on its own, staggering to my feet, the pew creaking loudly. "What the hell do you mean by that, David?" I shouted, my voice cracking with raw fury. David paled, stammering, "Dad, I just wanted to honor everyone who mattered to her." Louis interjected smoothly, "Calm down, Michael. This is her funeral." But I whirled on him. "Honor? You're the one who dishonored everything." I lunged forward, shoving his chest hard. He stumbled back, knocking over a vase of lilies that shattered on the marble floor, water and petals scattering like broken promises. Chaos erupted, gasps from the crowd. Anna grabbing my arm. "Michael, stop, for God's sake." David looked at me with disappointment, shaking his head. I collapsed back into my seat, shame flooding me like a cold wave. I'd lost control in front of our entire community, the people who'd watched us build our life from nothing. Whispers swelled. "Michael's gone mad with grief." The pastor tried to resume murmuring about God's forgiveness, but the damage was done. As the service wrapped in awkward tension, I stared at Elizabeth's casket, whispering silently. Why Elizabeth, after all we had? The pain cut deep, a wound that wouldn't heal easily. 45 years of sweat and love traded for lies. But in that moment, I knew one thing: age wouldn't silence me against injustice. Strength lay in the memories, and I'd need every bit of it to face what came next. Have you ever plunged into the depths of your own past, hoping for a sliver of comfort, only to unearth blades sharper than before? That's where I found myself. Michael Thompson, alone in the dim glow of my old Victorian home in Napa Valley, clutching my late wife, Elizabeth's weathered diary like a lifeline. Or perhaps a curse. The funeral had ended in chaos just days ago, leaving me reeling from the public humiliation and the raw sting of betrayal. But grief has a way of demanding answers, and so I began digging, not for forgiveness just yet, but for understanding why my 45-year marriage had unraveled into this web of lies. If you've ever faced the ghosts of yesterday's deceptions, join me on this treacherous path. It teaches that memories can be your greatest allies or your fiercest foes. And sometimes the truth you seek is the one that breaks you widest open. It started in the quiet hours after the service, when the last of the mourners had trickled out of St. Vincent's Chapel, their condolences hanging in the air like fog over the vineyards at dawn. I drove back home in my rusty pickup truck, the engine rumbling along the winding valley roads, flanked by endless rows of grapevines heavy with fruit. The sun dipped low, casting golden hues over the hills, but my mind was shrouded in darkness. The old house loomed ahead, its wraparound porch sagging slightly under the weight of years, the paint peeling like old skin. I parked in the gravel driveway, the crunch of tires echoing my fractured thoughts, and stepped inside the door, creaking on its hinges as if protesting my return. The living room was a time capsule, faded floral wallpaper Elizabeth had chosen during our early days, the stone fireplace where we'd roasted marshmallows on rainy afternoons, and shelves lined with dusty wine bottles from our first successful vintages. But now it felt like a tomb. I sank into the worn leather armchair by the window, the one where Elizabeth and I used to sit on winter evenings, sipping our own Cabernet while planning the next harvest. The late afternoon light slanted through the oak-framed panes, illuminating motes of dust dancing in the air and casting long shadows across the hardwood floor, etched with scuffs from family life. My hands, rough from years of tending vines and shaping clay, trembled as I reached for the wooden box tucked under the coffee table. A simple oak chest I'd carved myself back when pottery was my passion, before the winery consumed everything. Why start here? To find proof that my suspicions were wrong, that Elizabeth's affair was a fleeting mistake, not a deliberate dismantling of our life. The box's lid groaned open, releasing a faint, musty scent of aged paper and faded ink, mingled with the lingering aroma of clay from old sketches I'd slipped in there. Inside lay letters, photos, and mementos from our early marriage, yellowed envelopes tied with string Polaroids from county fairs, ticket stubs from bluegrass concerts in downtown Napa. My fingers, gnarled by arthritis, fumbled through them, each item a portal to the past. But as I sifted deeper, hope curdled into horror. The first blow came from a stack of letters, their envelopes brittle and addressed in Elizabeth's elegant script. I pulled one out, dated 5 years ago, and unfolded it carefully, the paper crackling like dry leaves. "My dearest Louis," it began. "I regret hiding this from Michael, but you understand me in ways he never could anymore. He's always buried in the winery, chasing that American dream we started together, but I've been left behind." The words blurred as tears welled up hot and unbidden. Shock hit first, a punch to the gut, followed by a deep, aching sadness. She hadn't chosen Louis out of love alone, but out of neglect, my neglect born from endless hours in the fields, negotiating deals in San Francisco, all to keep the business afloat. At 72, I lacked the energy for explosive rage. Instead, I sat there, tears tracing lines down my weathered cheeks, feeling utterly powerless, like an old man robbed not just by time, but by his own choices. I continued rummaging, my breath shallow, the room growing dimmer as the sun set over the valley. Climbing the creaky stairs to the attic, each step protesting under my weight, I retrieved another box, this one dustier, forgotten, amid old holiday decorations and winery ledgers. The attic air was stale thick with the scent of mothballs and aged wood, evoking memories of Elizabeth and me cleaning it together, laughing over rediscovered treasures like our wedding album. Now every photo I flipped felt like a stab. One in particular stopped me cold. A faded snapshot from the Napa County Fair a decade ago. Elizabeth beaming under string lights, young David clinging to Louis's leg like a father figure, all three laughing amid the carnival chaos of fried foods and folk music. That image seared into me. Did David know back then anger surged, tangled with heartache for my son, the last pillar I thought I had, who might have been complicit in this charade? I examined the photo closer under the attic's bare bulb, its harsh light highlighting Lewis's smug grin. He'd worked for me briefly at the ceramics workshop 20 years prior before I fired him for botching a big order. Pieces shattered beyond repair, costing me my dream of expanding the studio. I'd chalked it up to clumsiness then, but now it smelled like sabotage, a seed of vengeance that had grown into this poison ivy, strangling my family. Self-blame gnawed at me. How had I missed the signs? I crumpled the photo slightly, then smoothed it out, forcing myself to face the reality, even as it squeezed my heart like a vice. Memories flooded back unbidden, the 45 years I'd poured into this marriage. From the day I set aside my potter's wheel to help Elizabeth turn a run-down plot into a thriving winery, learning to graft vines instead of mold clay, all to make her happy and secure our future. Early years were tough dawn patrols in the fog-shrouded fields, my hands blistered from tools. But we'd laugh over dinners of simple pasta and our experimental wines. Now those recollections were tainted, colored by betrayal. Determined, I headed out to the local farmers market in nearby St. Helena, the air buzzing with vendors hawking fresh produce, artisanal cheeses, and valley-grown herbs. The market was alive, shouts of fresh berry, mingling with the sizzle of food trucks, the earthy smell of soil-clinging vegetables, overpowering everything. I zeroed in on Karen's stall piled high, with organic tomatoes and herbs from her garden adjoining ours. Karen, our neighbor for decades, stood there in her sun hat, her face lined from years under the California sun, eyes evasive as I approached. "Karen," I said bluntly, my voice quivering with barely contained fury. "You knew about Elizabeth and Lewis, didn't you, all those years?" She lowered her head, fiddling with a bunch of basil, its sharp scent cutting through the tension. "Michael, it lasted 15 years?" she whispered finally. "Lewis would come over when you were off in San Francisco sealing deals or out in the fields till dark. They'd meet in the backyard under the grape arbor, laughing like old lovers." Her words painted vivid, unwanted pictures, stolen moments in our own home, while I slaved away to build something lasting. The interaction heated up. I raised my voice. "You watched and said nothing. You're our neighbor, our friend." Heads turned from nearby stalls, murmurs rippling through the crowd like wind through vines. Karen shot back defensively. "I didn't want to meddle. Elizabeth begged me to stay silent, said it would destroy the family." Humiliation burned in my cheeks, anger at the deceit mixing with shame for my outburst. I turned away, steps heavy escaping the prying eyes, but the pain made every movement a labor. Back home, I returned to the letters, reading them obsessively by lamplight, the room now dark, save for the glow pooling on the table. Elizabeth wrote, "I regret it, but Louis listens when Michael's consumed by work." The tragedy sank in. I'd lost her not to passion alone, but to my absence, all in pursuit of stability. Like a craftsman watching his finest piece shatter from someone else's carelessness, I felt my sacrifices evaporate. Age left me without the strength to scream, just a dull, throbbing ache. Memories might heal, but if you don't confront them soon, they fester. Dig deep to set them free before they consume you. The discoveries didn't stop. They propelled me toward deeper secrets. That fair photo with David pushed me to question him further, unprepared for how it might unravel Louis's revenge plot and reshape our family's future. Follow me, the revelations are just beginning to heat up. Have you ever sat down with your own flesh and blood, hoping for a bridge to mend the chasm of hurt, only to watch it widen into an abyss? That's the raw agony I, Michael Thompson, endured as I waited in a bustling cafe in downtown Napa. My old hands wrapped around a steaming mug of black coffee, staring out at the valley's sun-kissed streets. The discoveries from Elizabeth's diary and those damning photos had left me hollow. But the real test was confronting my son, David. The boy I'd raised into a man, only to feel him slip away, like a vine untethered in a storm. After the funeral's explosion and the unearthed secrets of betrayal, I needed to know where he stood with me, his father, who'd sacrificed everything, or with Louis, the interloper, who'd poisoned our family tree. If you've ever fought to hold your family together amid crumbling foundations, come with me through this confrontation. It reveals that sacrifices can define you, but without acknowledgement from both sides, they fade into forgotten echoes, teaching a harsh lesson many parents learn too late. The day began with a ritual to steady my nerves, much like pruning vines before a big harvest, methodical, necessary, but fraught with the risk of cutting too deep. I rose early in the old house, the Napa dawn painting the hills in soft pinks and golds, the air crisp with the promise of another warm California day. In the kitchen, with its scarred wooden counters and the faint scent of yesterday's coffee grounds, I brewed a pot of strong black joe, the aroma filling the space like a familiar embrace. It was the same ritual Elizabeth and I had shared for years, her adding cream to hers, while I took mine black, chatting about winery plans over the steam. Now alone, the mug warmed my arthritic hands as I dialed David's number, my voice aiming for firmness despite the knot in my throat. "Son, we need to talk. Meet me at the Vine and Bean Cafe on Main Street, please." He hesitated, his tone laced with unease. "Okay, Dad, I'll be there," as if he sensed the storm brewing. I chose that cafe deliberately, a cozy spot in the heart of Napa's downtown, with exposed brick walls, chalkboard menus listing artisanal brews, and outdoor tables under shady oaks bordering the bustling sidewalk. It was public enough to keep tempers in check after my outburst at the market with Karen. I couldn't risk another scene, but intimate with the hum of conversation and the twang of a street musician's guitar providing a buffer. As I dressed in a faded button-down shirt, the one I'd worn on better days, hiking the vineyard trails, my silver hair tousled and unkempt, mirroring the chaos inside, I felt out of place among the younger crowd that frequented these spots. At 72, my steps were slower. My back stooped from years bent over vines, but determination propelled me forward. The purpose to avoid exploding like at the funeral, to maintain some dignity while probing for the truth. Arriving early, I claimed an outdoor table, the wrought iron chair scraping against the pavement as I sat. The cafe buzzed with life, the rich scent of freshly ground beans blending with the sizzle of pastries from the kitchen, the distant strum of a folk guitarist playing a melancholic tune that echoed my mood. Young couples chatted animatedly. Kids darted between tables, a world indifferent to my turmoil. I ordered my coffee black, the steam rising in lazy spirals, warming my face as I clutched the mug to steady my shaking hands. David arrived on time, striding in with the confidence of a successful winery manager. His suit's sharp hair neatly combed, but his eyes betraying fatigue from long days at the business I'd helped build. He sat across from me, ordering a short espresso, his voice tentative. "What's this about, Dad? You sound worried?" I took a deep breath, the vapor from my coffee mingling with my words. "David, I need to understand your side. After what you said at the funeral, calling Louis a second father, it gutted me." I laid out the sacrifices, my voice steady but laced with emotion. "Remember, son, I sold my ceramics workshop, the one where I dreamed of creating art full-time, to pay for your tuition at UC San Francisco. Those were tough years. I stayed up nights caring for your grandma when she was ill so your mom could focus on the winery without worry. I missed your school plays, your guitar recitals, all because I was out there in the fields, or driving to meetings, building something for us all." My words hung heavy, and David shifted, lowering his gaze to his cup. The clink of his spoon against porcelain, the only sound for a moment. But his response cut like a pruning shear. "Dad, that's just what parents do, isn't it? It's not some extraordinary feat everyone expects it." The dismissal stung, reducing my life's work to obligation, as if the sleepless nights wiping fever from his brow as a child, or the back-breaking labor under the scorching Napa sun, were mere footnotes. Memories flashed David as a toddler giggling as I pushed him on a swing in our backyard, the grapevines swaying in the breeze. Or teen years when I'd drive hours after a full day to watch his high school games, ignoring my exhaustion. Now it all seemed vaporized. The conversation escalated as I pressed, "Do you support Lewis? Believe he understood your mother better than I did?" David nodded without hesitation, his voice gaining edge. "Lewis taught me guitar, Ed. He was there for lessons after school listening when I practiced correcting my chords. You were always tied up with contracts or harvests. I see him often. He's like the dad who had time." His words were a gut punch, jealousy flaring, as I pictured Lewis stepping into my role, strumming tunes, while I toiled to keep the roof over our heads. "And the affair?" I demanded, my voice rising. "You knew for years but kept silent because Mom promised you shares in the winery," David confirmed, unapologetic. "Yeah, it was her way of securing my future, separate from the will. Not just betrayal, but calculated gain. It shattered me, my body trembling from age and adrenaline. I recounted more. I missed your big recital because I was in San Francisco negotiating a deal that saved the winery from bankruptcy, ensuring you had a legacy." David averted his eyes, fixating on the guitarist nearby, whose melody swelled with passion. "You were always absent, Dad. Lewis was different, he showed up." The climax hit like a valley storm. I stood shakily, my chair scraping loudly, voice booming over the music. "So my sacrifices were pointless. You're choosing a man bent on revenge over your own father." Heads turned from nearby tables, murmurs rippling like before, but I didn't care. David rose abruptly, his face flushed, and stormed off without a backward glance, weaving through the crowd of curious onlookers. I sank back down, heart-pounding sweat beading on my forehead, despite the gentle breeze rustling the oak leaves. Exposed and vulnerable, I felt every one of my 72 years, the weight of isolation crushing. Walking home along Napa's empedradas, no weight the sun-dappled sidewalks lined with boutique shops and tasting rooms. I reflected in the fading light, the sky streaked with oranges and pinks like a fine rosé. Back in the armchair, I vowed to live for myself now. No more clinging to bonds that lacerated. Like those American tales of fathers pouring everything into their kids' futures, working double shifts, skipping dreams only to be seen as dutiful drones, I learned sacrifices need reciprocity to endure. Confrontation wounds, but it exposes loyalties. Speak before silence breeds irreparable rifts. But it wasn't over. That night, as stars twinkled over the vineyards, my phone rang. David's voice thick with regret. "Dad, I messed up. What I said was unfair. I didn't appreciate your efforts enough." I paused, needing space, but his remorse sparked a fragile hope. Yet my resolve hardened. Louis, the architect of this pain, awaited confrontation. The guitar's melody lingered in my mind, symbolizing our fractured harmony, high notes of hurt, low ones of potential mending. Tomorrow I'd face the enemy armed with truths about his sabotage and infiltration. The valley night was warm, jasmine scents drifting from the garden. But inside me burned a new fire forged in this clash with my son. Have you ever scrolled through the polished facade of someone's online life, expecting a glimpse of truth, only to uncover a trail of deceit that shatters your last illusions? That's the bitter pill Michael Thompson swallowed as I sat hunched over my outdated laptop in the dim study of my Napa Valley home. The screen's glow casting eerie shadows on the walls, lined with old winery ledgers. The confrontation with David at the cafe had left a fragile thread of hope, his late-night apology echoing in my mind, but the fire of determination burned brighter. I needed hard evidence against Lewis, not just whispers and memories. After piecing together the affair's timeline from Elizabeth's diary and those haunting photos, I turned to the digital world for answers, not out of petty revenge, but to safeguard what remained of my shattered life. If you've ever gathered crumbs of proof to confront the wolves in sheep's clothing, walk this path with me. It shows that evidence empowers, but tread carefully. Emotions can cloud judgment, and the truth often demands a steeper price than you anticipate. The hunt began that evening as the Napa sunset bled crimson over the vineyards, mirroring the rage simmering in my veins. The house was silent, save for the distant call of crickets and the occasional creak of settling wood. A far cry from the lively family dinners we'd once shared around the oak table. I settled into my worn desk chair, the leather creaking under my weight, and fired up the laptop, a clunky relic from before smartphones took over its fan, whirring like an old tractor. Logging into Facebook felt foreign. I wasn't one for social media, preferring the tangible world of soil and clay. But desperation drove me. Lewis's profile popped up easily. He'd friended me years ago under the guise of winery camaraderie. His page was a showcase of excess photos of a sprawling villa by the Napa River manicured gardens, bursting with exotic blooms, a sparkling pool reflecting the valley hills, and sleek cars parked in a driveway that screamed newfound wealth. Captions boasted, "Living the dream, hard work pays off," with emojis of champagne glasses clinking. I scrolled deeper, my arthritic fingers clicking awkwardly, heart racing as patterns emerged. Posts from lavish vacations to Lake Tahoe, a new boat docked at the Marina Luxuries, far beyond what a family friend should afford on odd jobs. Then the gut punch David's comments littered throughout. "Congrats, Dad, you deserve this after all your sacrifices." "Looking good, proud of you." The word "dad" leaped out like an accusation, fueling suspicions of a deeper conspiracy. Was David in on the financial siphoning? Emotions surged fury at the flaunting heartbreak that my son might be entangled. At 72, I felt impotent, my hands shaking not just from age, but from the betrayal's weight. Why dig here? To confirm the rot beneath the surface, to arm myself before it consumed everything. Needing expertise beyond my grasp, I called Sophia, an old friend from my ceramics days, now a retired accountant living in nearby Yountville. We'd bonded over shared valley roots. She'd helped balance my early workshop books before the winery boom. The phone rang twice, her voice warm but concerned. "Michael, it's late. Are you all right? You sound like you've seen a ghost." I spilled it all, the will, the letters, Lewis's opulent posts. "Can you look into his finances? Discreetly." She paused, then agreed. "For you, old friend, yes. But this could get messy. Promise you'll be careful." The purpose, Sophia knew ledgers like I knew vines. She'd uncover what my gut screamed was theft without alerting the snake. Days blurred into anxious waiting, the Napa summer heat mirroring my inner turmoil. I paced the house, tending the backyard grape arbor absent-mindedly, the leaves rustling like whispers of accusation. Finally, Sophia arrived one afternoon, her sensible sedan crunching gravel in the driveway. She stepped in, her face etched with more lines than I remembered, carrying a folder thick with printouts. The living room air hung heavy with the scent of fresh brewed tea I'd prepared, chamomile to calm nerves, as we sat at the table. Photos of us from younger days adorned the walls, laughing at county fairs, arms around Elizabeth. Now those smiles mocked me. Sophia's eyes softened with empathy. "Michael, you've been through hell. But what I found? It's bad." She spread the documents, bank statements, transfer logs from the winery accounts. Louis received large sums monthly from the business, tens of thousands over years. And here's the kicker, it includes your retirement savings, siphoned gradually. Nearly $50,000 matches what you got from selling the ceramics workshop. The numbers blurred as tears stung my eyes. It wasn't just emotional theft, he'd robbed my future, the nest egg for quiet valley days. I slumped back, whispering, "He stole everything." Sophia reached across. "I'm so sorry. But there's more. Transfers align with times you were away, like those San Francisco trips." The revelation hit like harvest frost, calculated cold. Later, alone in the darkening room, streetlight filtering through curtains, scented with valley dust. I let the sobs come, unloading the pent-up grief. Age left me frail, but resolve hardened. I wouldn't stop. Emboldened, I confronted Sophia further. "We have to report this Sue for fraud." She shook her head warily. "Michael digging deeper could backfire legally. I know a case where a friend got slapped with invasion claims." Tension rose, I snapped. "You think I'm scared? He's destroyed me." She grasped my hand. "I'm just worried for you. Think it through." I pulled away trembling, but my spirit roared, "No backing down." Sophia sighed, revealing, "Louis felt snubbed when you didn't partner with him on the workshop expansion. Said you saw him as inept. This affair may be revenge from the start." It connected the accident that wrecked my pottery batch, his firing all seeds of this vendetta. I cradled my head, calming the storm, but determination surged. The evidence piled invoices for Louis' car purchase matching my workshop sale amount, $50,000 exactly. A small lesson emerged. Gathering proof strengthens you, but temper it with caution. Let reason guide lest emotions derail the fight. This fueled my next step, hiring a lawyer. Claire Ramirez, a sharp 50-something attorney in Napa with a reputation for family disputes, met me in her office overlooking the town square. The space smelled of fresh coffee and leather-bound books, a framed photo of the valley harvest on the wall. "These transfers are solid grounds for fraud," she said, adjusting her glasses. "But brace for backlash, the valley's tight-knit. Rumors fly fast." I nodded, signing on purpose, clear justice not just for me, but to honor Elizabeth's true legacy. But the cost came swift. Public opinion shifted like valley winds. An email from the ceramics fair organizers. "Sorry, Michael, but with the rumors of you mistreating Elizabeth, we can't include you this year. We want to avoid drama." Whispers at the grocery store, averted eyes, hushed talks of abuse justifying her affair. It isolated me, walks through downtown, feeling heavier, my bastion in the community crumbling. Then David's social post, "My dad's lawsuit is selfish, tearing down mom's memory out of jealousy." I called him, voice cracking. "Son, the evidence shows theft. Why side with him?" He shouted back, "Stop. Dad, Louis is good. You're obsessed with grudges." The line went dead, leaving me reeling. The preliminary hearing loomed in the county courthouse, a stately building with oak-paneled rooms, smelling of polished wood and tension. The air was stuffy, a ceiling fan whirring futilely against the heat. Claire presented the transfers. Clear fraud, $100,000 diverted. But David stood yelling, "Dad's destroying our legacy. Louis loved Mom when he ignored her." I shot back, "He stole from us, son. Why cover for him?" Chaos briefly reigned, the judge banging his gavel. Then the blow, Louis's countersuit for defamation demanding $200,000. I gripped my cane knees, buckling, but Claire whispered, "We'll counter. You're not alone." That night, back home with the valley stars mocking my solitude, I sat by the fireplace, a photo of Elizabeth in hand. Her smile contrasted my despair, but Claire's call sparked hope. More proof incoming. Rumors swelled local papers, sensationalizing widower Sue's lover splitting valley. But my fire didn't dim. This battle was just starting. The full truth awaited. Have you ever stepped into a room heavy with the weight of unspoken truths, yearning for closure only to face revelations that both heal and scar in equal measure? That's the precipice Michael Thompson, teetered on as I entered the sterile mediation room in the Napa County Courthouse, my cane tapping rhythmically against the linoleum floor like a hesitant heartbeat. Months of grueling litigation had worn me down. The lawsuits, the whispers in the valley, the isolation. But this session promised an end, or at least a turning point. With Claire by my side clutching a folder of damning evidence, I prepared to confront Louis and David once more. If you've ever balanced on the knife edge between justice and mercy, journey with me through this crucible. It unveils that truth, no matter how brutal, can illuminate the path to mending, reminding us that forgiveness isn't erasure. It's the quiet strength to rebuild from ruins. The morning arrived with Napa's signature fog rolling in from the bay, blanketing the vineyards in an ethereal haze that matched my muddled thoughts. I rose before dawn in the old house. The hardwood floors cold underfoot and brewed coffee in the kitchen, where Elizabeth's absence still echoed like a missing ingredient in a familiar recipe. The aroma grounded me as I dressed in a simple gray suit, the fabric hanging looser from stress-induced weight loss, my silver hair combed back with unsteady hands. Driving to the courthouse, the roads twisted through mist-shrouded hills, the occasional winery sign emerging like ghosts. The building itself was unassuming, a modern structure with clean lines and a lobby smelling of fresh varnish and institutional coffee. But the mediation room felt oppressive, a windowless space with a long oak table, harsh fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and walls painted a neutral beige that did nothing to soothe frayed nerves. We gathered around the table, Claire to my right, her briefcase open with documents at the ready. David across from me, his face drawn and avoiding eye contact. Shoulders slumped under his rumpled suit. Louis beside him, maintaining a facade of calm, his hands folded tightly, knuckles white. The mediator, a middle-aged judge with wire-rimmed glasses, perpetually slipping down his nose, nodded for us to begin, his voice even. "This is about resolution, folks. Let's keep it civil. The goal: settle the fraud claims without dragging into full trial, sparing further emotional carnage for David and me. Though hope for reconciliation felt as fragile as a young vine in frost. Claire started strong, standing to activate a projector with a soft click, the beam cutting through the dim room. "We have fresh evidence, photos and notes proving Elizabeth was coerced into altering the will." The screen lit up with an image that stole my breath: Elizabeth in a quaint riverside cafe in downtown Napa. Her silver hair in a loose bun, face etched with anxiety lines, deepened by illness and strain. Louis loomed beside her, his hand possessive on her shoulder. The late afternoon light slanting through the window, accentuating shadows of exhaustion in her eyes. Paired with it, a handwritten note in her trembling script ink smudged from what looked like tears. "Michael, forgive me. You're my whole world. But I was forced." The words pierced me anew, tears pricking as I gripped my cane, refusing to show weakness before the man who'd orchestrated this nightmare. The room murmured, the mediator leaning forward while public sentiment in the valley, once against me with rumors of abuse, had begun shifting. Local papers ran headlines like, "Widower's Fight Reveals Coercion in Winery Dispute," with neighbors who'd shunned me now offering nods at the market or calls of support. "We were wrong, Michael. You're a good man." Louis stayed silent at first, his eyes flickering with unease, fingers drumming subtly on the table. Claire pressed on, her voice sharp. "And a witness, James, former winery employee, confirms the financial pressure." James rose slowly from the back, a sturdy 65-year-old in a faded flannel shirt, his hair gray and tousled, leaning on the chair for balance. His voice quavered but held firm. I overheard Louis cornering Elizabeth in the office door ajar. He yelled she'd better sign over assets, or he'd expose tax irregularities, bankrupt us all, David included. The testimony hung like smoke, silencing the room. The fans were amplifying the tension. I glared at Louis, rage boiling. He'd not only stolen her affection, but manipulated her fears, dismantling the legacy we'd sweated over in those sun-baked fields. The peak shattered when Claire read the note aloud. Louis forced the will change, threatening to expose company secrets. "Michael, I never wanted to hurt you. You've always been the perfect husband." Louis erupted, bolting up and knocking his chair back with a crash, face reddening like overripe grapes. "Enough. I did it because Michael deserved it. He fired me from the workshop like I was trash, never gave me a real shot." The judge hammered his gavel repeatedly, restoring order amid gasps, murmurs rippling. "He's confessed." Louis ranted on. I planned to take it all, wife's son money, so he'd no loss. I stood shakily, cane thudding. You wrecked my family over petty grudge. Twisted even David against me. Lewis collapsed, sweat beading, eyes wild as realization dawned he'd undone himself. David, head bowed, broke the hush with a choked voice. Dad, I'm sorry. I knew about Lewis's pressure for years, but Mom begged silence to shield me from the pain. The admission lanced deep. My whole family, Elizabeth, David, Anna, had woven this veil of lies, leaving me in blind suffering. You let me rot in ignorance, I whispered, eyes misting. David sobbed, rising to embrace me, his cologne faint amid the room's stale air. I was wrong, Dad. You're the family's rock. I see it now. I held him tight, his heartbeat frantic against mine. Pain peaking, but forgiveness trickling in the wound, still raw. The judge softened, pausing notes as whispers faded. What a broken family. The judge called a recess. We'll review, including Lewis's admission. I stepped into the hallway, sinking onto a stone bench, the afternoon breeze carrying jasmine from a nearby courtyard. Birds chirping in oaks like a balm. Claire brought vending machine coffee, patting my shoulder. We're close to winning, Michael. David's with you. Lewis is sunk. I sipped the bitter brew, hands steadier, nodding with renewed grit, my aged body weary, but spirit unbroken. The session taught, facing truth heals even painfully, speak before secrets devour. Post-recess, the judge ruled Lewis to pay $150,000 restitution, assets frozen pending trial. Back home, diary in hand by the fire, Elizabeth's words softened me. Michael's sacrifices were immense. My weakness from loneliness. Full forgiveness bloomed. Then Claire's bombshell, a hidden $200,000 account Elizabeth stashed for David and me, shielding from debts she'd uncovered. She protected you, Claire said. David arrived hugging fiercely. Mom loved us both. We pored over papers, her signature evoking tears. She always did. I launched From Ashes, a podcast from my study mic, humming, as I shared tales raising funds for Valley orphans. The Second Life party in the town square buzzed, fairy lights, twinkling bluegrass, filling the air, scents of barbecue wafting. On stage, I read her final letter, Love Michael eternally. Applause swelled in elder wiping tears. She truly loved him. Lewis appeared disheveled. Michael, hate blinded me, forgive. I clasped his hand. I do but harm no more. He nodded, vanishing into the night amid soft claps. Like American sagas of redemption, forgiveness, crowned resilience. Truth frees. Life's second acts await. Join my ongoing voyage.